afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and lining up outside. A little bit of context on why you see me and Mr. Richard Balvin putzing around a little bit. So, long story short, we're both beaming this, we're both live streaming this panel for everyone online participating in Zenkaikon. I'm also recording this because this could very well help in the next transition of what I'm hoping to do with my career, which I'll talk more about when the panel starts off, but effectively, as I try to move from fandom lectures and go to my new career as a clinical social worker and possible nerd therapist, I'm hoping to do more of a lecture series about mental health in pop culture and animation. We already have modalities such as superhero therapy. We already have modalities such as therapy adjacent tabletop role playing. So you can, I feel like I gave this talk yesterday, you can almost run group therapy while running Dungeons and Dragons, so long as you are mindful and aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So about 3 minutes to go. Fantastic. Should be good timing. We're filming because I'd love to get clips and bits of this up onto the future YouTube and the future social media. I got off of a lot of social media halfway through the pandemic, you know, because I had retired in 2017. I'm so basically retired from doing nerd stand-up full time, which is why I only did 12 hours of programming this weekend. I have a problem. Right? So what's my frame of reference? How much space do I have? I've kind of built myself a cage.
You've got the full stage for movement.
Okay. That's a good metaphor for my life and my future, right? Yeah, we build our own cages and our own boxes. How has your weekend been, everybody? That's a lot of energy for a Sunday. You should hear us at the Dead Dog. How are you guys doing?
I'm set.
Rock and roll. Thank you, Rich. You know what? Shall we begin? Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let me just get a show of hands for reference. How many are here because they know my stage name, Uncle Yo, anime-specific stand-up comedian? Okay, that's a good chunk. That's like a 75% chunk of the audience. Thank you so much. How many are here because you are curious about mental health and trauma recovery? Significantly fewer hand. Okay, interesting. How many are here because you saw Naruto was mentioned in the program? Love that. Okay, so spoiler alert, that's about half the audience. That is the ranking system of which you will be the most disappointed because this is a mental health lecture using Naruto to illustrate how our brains work and recover from sustained mental and physical and spiritual injury. So strap in. Because for about a decade, I was a geek-specific stand-up comedian. I lectured on fandoms, social justice issues, animation, game designs, feminism, and now that I'm graduating with a master's in clinical social work, I'm transitioning from nerd fandom presenter into more nerd therapist. So I'm going to talk through the 3 core characters of Naruto from the first 2 seasons exclusively, and we'll use them as like fictional case studies to lecture on trauma response and, most importantly, healing from the things that happened to us. And the use of language is very important on this. So, and you know, maybe I will throw in a butt joke as well. Old dog, new tricks, we'll see where we land. And in traveling to conventions over a decade, and making a living doing that for almost 10 years, and then studying mental health, I have heard these incredible stories of resilience, of people finding personal strength and personal identifiers in animated characters. There's something so expressive that you can't deny how the character is feeling. And for some of us, having that direct translation is magnificent. No one looks at a panel of One Piece and wonders what Monkey D. Luffy is feeling. It's either food or punch. And that makes sense. It makes sense because we have superhero therapy in treating adolescents all the time, thanks to Dr. Janina Scarlett's book, Superhero Therapy. Because look at what a superhero does. It's the Spider-Man trope. Average person suffers a huge loss, weaponizes their pain, and powers themselves to protect themselves and make sure it never happens again. Most superheroes face fearful unknowns without fear. That is false. No one exists without fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety protect us. You'll see that in a moment. Remember that courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting even when we are afraid. So, for the norms probably watching at home and or the parents, let me make sure that we're up and running on the PowerPoint. Jawsome. That is a reference to the fact that yes, I am an elder millennial. I don't have children, I have cats. I don't have pets, I have airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, PowerPoint. Where's our speaker? Where's our speaker for this? Let's see what we can do. Am I tethered to anything? No. Great. Get you a little closer. Can you go a little higher? Okay. And that's the interactive part of the panel. Welcome. Long story short, this will probably be redundant for a room full of nerds. Naruto, the comic book series, ran for 72 volumes from 1999 to 2014. Its animated series and sequel series, Naruto Shippuden, as well as a collection of dozens of movies and video games, would run from 2002 to 2017, and even today, its next generation, Boruto, is also a show. I believe Naruto Shippuden was and is beloved for its 25-year tenure because people who were teenagers when it came out, some of them are grandparents today. Some of them who were cool animation-watching adults are watching now through the generations. Their kids get to grow up. They get to watch the first significant Rock Lee fight. They get to watch the first significant transformation. They get to see and share it, and it keeps going and spreading the positives as well as some of the difficult issues. But Naruto is a supernatural animated series about the struggles of good and evil, community versus the individual versus individual for the community, and finding your own way. Surviving despite hardships, building community despite feeling alone, and persevering past what you thought your personal limits were. And that appeals to a lot of people who started lower and had to work their way up. This is a show about community, I think unquestionably, living outside the social norm and celebrating that finding points of strength in everyone. What I like about Naruto, you don't have to advance yourself, PowerPoint. That's my job. That's our relationship. And you see, I had the chance to get mad, but we gave ourselves some space and mindfulness. We've been wonderful for Orochimaru to practice that too. I like Naruto the series because it's always been about people versus people. It's not necessarily teenagers punching ghosts or yokai or demon. It's always people versus people, idea versus idea. And yes, I understand I can do an entire lecture series, as I plan to, about trauma in any anime. Trauma in Attack on Titan. Trauma in Demon Slayer. And yeah, the reason I stick with Naruto, it sticks with the Black and Latinx community. It sticks and means something really special for the underdogs. Its $10 billion franchise is there for a reason. So this anti-classism narrative that you never give up on yourself, you define yourself and you find your own way, no matter what happened to you. I'm going to lay some information down. I'm going to lay some clinical facts before we go, ninja, go. Okie dokie. A lot happening on the panel, we'll break it down. Full disclaimer, I'm still a student. I don't graduate till May. And I will not even point to the tip of the iceberg when we talk about trauma and trauma-informed lecturing. I will be waving for you to point to the general hazy tips of the iceberg. I'm saying there's a lot of research, there's a lot of information. We've advanced so far in the last 30 years of how our process of hard events shapes the brain. This is not therapy, nor is this advice for anybody in the room. So, from here on, I promise, PG-13, I will actively avoid talking about incidents of sexual abuse, or SA, in the clinical world, and self-harm, or SH. This is your hall pass now. If anything I talk about, if that activates you, you protect yourself first and you get to leave the room. No problem. I will not call you out. I will not be offended. I will applaud you for protecting yourself and knowing when to raise those shields, Mr. Wolf. The Webster's definition of trauma, emotional response to a terrible event like an accident or a natural disaster. Immediately after that event, there is shock and denial. That's very typical. What we look for in the clinical setting is if the event repeats itself in dreams, intrusive thoughts, intrusive feelings. The body automatically responded when it sees something similar that interrupts your daily life. You can be anxious, you can have anxiety, but it's not clinical anxiety until it stops you from doing your average task. Showing up at work, picking up the phone, getting out to the grocery store. Once it starts to interrupt the day-to-day, then it's time to look into help. And that is so hard for people who have had to do so much by themselves alone. The kind of people that really get into a show because it has the core and answer to a lot of things going on in their lives. You see. So my trauma professor, Dr. Billy Jones, also added that trauma can be what didn't happen to you. What didn't happen to you, such as food, shelter, emotional support. Here's what I mean from that. You are more prone to sustain stressful anguish depending on where you are born, especially in the United States, where we can guess your age of death by the zip code you grow up in. Your zip code will define how many toxic waste sites, how many pig runoff farms, how poisonous the water or other systems around you are going to be. How broke is your district is how bad your health might be as you get older. Poverty can also compile in developmental trauma over time problems like angry or emotionally absent parent. Intergenerational trauma, which we talked about a little, can actually be passed on in your genes. We see this in survivors whose grandparents and great-grandparents survived the Holocaust. There are certain things that activate and overactivate. Now, let's jump into that. But the firm definition, trauma, as I'll talk about today, is our eternal experiences and process of hard events. When we treat someone, we can use the ACEs score, right? It's a universal evidence-based practice. We score 1 from 10 adverse childhood experiences. This is when it's going to start planning a lot into Naruto. This is one of the many initial approaches when treating or accepting someone with difficult past and in current environments. Understanding a client's experience and history helps us diagnose, okay, parents were always loud and arguing. For how long? Over what event? Were you included? Were you a bargaining chip? Were you completely ignored and pushed out? Maybe that has something to do with why you need attention now from parents, etc. So, as we get to doing with that, let me dive and jump into trauma-informed practices. Okay, this is the biggest step that we've made in handling schools, in handling hospitals and college campuses, to become more trauma-informed on practices, knowing what to look for and what to expect. Because the biggest thing that we're learning is that trauma that we can't process is hard. It is all-invasive in our day-to-day behavior. It can be. And maybe if the rest of the team cut the client some slack and change the conversation to remove that stigma and shame, we can stop blaming survivors. So the dialogue of what is wrong with you, which I heard nonstop growing up in the 80s and 90s, becomes what was done to you. The blame and the shame is removed from the victim. And the thing that happened to them gives them the benefit of a doubt that they are still at their core a good person, like many of us. We just all are. Why are you acting this way? Suddenly becomes, obviously you're a young kid, you didn't sleep, you haven't eaten today, and everything aggravates you. Oh, why won't you talk to me, kid? I'm your assigned social worker. Has quickly become, thanks to my drama therapist, Heidi Landis, I'm glad you know how to protect yourself. I am a stranger. You don't know you can trust me yet. Would you like a fruit bar? Pockets protect everything. That's all that's in Kakashi's vest pockets. Snacks and nuts. So trauma is a ninja. It is deceptive and it hides in plain sight, and often the symptoms will get over-diagnosed. Not sure why it's doing that, but we'll go with that. Trauma is a ninja and it hides in plain sight. It has many symptoms that get falsely diagnosed as ADHD, depression, anxiety. This is just generalized, but generally, female at birth clients are going to internalize and shut down and show it as depression. Usually male-borns are going to take depression or externalize it angrily, get away versus I'm bad at this. Knowing that codings and breaking that code is important when learning how to train people to see it and treat it. Trauma does not think, it reacts. Trauma is that alleyway cat that you spray with water. That is it. Not being able to put any time between and there will be some screaming involved. It's all safe. This is just a room. This is just a demonstration. We're all in cosplay. I'm cosplaying social worker right now. So why is this important? Because the world, I think, is still recovering from a lot of things. And we're about to have billions of people that need to cope with COVID and a couple million more that need to cope with climate migration, with losing their homes. It becomes the difficult dialogue of shame versus guilt. Off the bat, I need to frame trauma recovery and resilience in two ways. That there are shame cultures, there are guilt cultures. The Hidden Leaf Village sees Naruto as the thing that killed their beloved leader. You, Naruto, are bad. That is shame. Shame cultures, like we see in East Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, they use shame to regulate people in the environment. Don't do the bad thing because you are linked to the bad thing. The first step in trauma recovery here in the West, the United States, it's even in our legal system. Innocent until proven guilty. Not, you're here because we know you did it. You've got to prove it first. The first step is creating that sense of safety. A critical second step is separating someone's shameful action away from their identity. So, I have lied does not become I am a liar. I lied. I made a choice, I can learn from it. I am a mistake becomes I made a mistake that I can learn from. And eventually, that mistake will not define me. And I have to admit, Naruto is pretty kind and resilient given the negligent household. Because what did he grow up in his first stage of life? 0 parents. Just one society yelling at him to do this. So, I think he's got it in his right to react and test boundaries. No one was there to model boundaries, and this is how we behave to him. It's easy to know what goes wrong with our lives because we're human. Our stress hormones and our amygdala can bypass and jump ahead of our logical thinking brain. Anything snake-shaped, whoa, let me check that out. A lot of us are here because some ancestor way back jumped away from something when it wasn't a snake, or maybe it was, but either way, you didn't get bit. You're still at that mercy today. We just don't have a lot of snakes present, so we kind of use it in social environments. We kind of get triggered while driving. Our brain is always trying to learn and vet what is and is not a threat. Your reptile brain has not figured out the screen is not going to bite you. You learn that over repetition. So one of the ways that we get to fight this guilt and shame is with gratitude. It's actively interrupting that bad thought cycle. The first thing you start thinking during that morning shower, why did I say that back then? Hold up, we do this every day. Yeah, I was a different person back then. I hope I've learned. Maybe someone deserves an apology text. Maybe I give you the benefit of a doubt. We all can't be responsible for what happens at the rave at conventions. We can't all take responsibility for that, but maybe someone should. So maybe there's an exercise in mindfulness, in being present in your moment without judgment, feeling your body, your thoughts, and your emotions generally. Because only you can do push-ups that benefit your arms, and only you can replace, why did I do that, with, I learned from that. So let's take a look at Naruto as the character. Again, really confused about why the PowerPoint is self-adjusting itself. Okay, now he knows. Okay, we all know the origin story at this point because Naruto was in the name of the panel, okay? The first 45 seconds of the series. Naruto grows up an orphan who is shunned by the Hidden Leaf village. Why? His father, the Golden Leader, the beloved leader, locked the spirit of a monstrous fox inside his infant son, and by doing that sacrificed his life. Let me break that down for you as a clinical trauma. Okay. Someone's father was completely absent, but passed a horrific event onto their child. That sounds like half of my brother-in-laws. That sounds like a whole lot of people in our lives sometimes. Just extracting that as a metaphor to show the example on that. No shame to the Yellow Flash. He made a very difficult decision in a very difficult environment. Still, his son has to grow up without that kind of necessary support and role modeling. Despite this crippling isolation during his critical development life phases, Naruto still dreams of becoming the chief of the ninja village, and not just any Hokage, the best Hokage, the greatest. Get up there on the Mount Rushmore of ninja heads. And without parents to model that behavior, he makes his own model of behavior. We can understand this. He acts out, he pranks, he shakes the social system. He creates sexy ninjutsu. He tries to find those little holes in people's personality in the social structure and shake it. He's a prankster. Because negative attention is still attention when you didn't get enough of that. But he's also able to validate the work and the efforts of his fellow ninja students, even respecting his foes and rivals, in encouraging Shikamaru and Choji, in validating Neji and Rock Lee's perseverance, even in the way he constantly pulls Sasuke to later rejoin Leaf Village. You don't have to leave. You've got a good ramen shop. Probably one of the reasons I stayed in Brooklyn for far too long after graduation. Stuff I knew was there. Even the way he later sympathizes with Gaara and Pain years later, he validates the potential for a positive future. That in itself is a superpower. You hear past the rage, past the screaming. What are you screaming about? You are really into justice and just treatment. Okay, we can work with this. And if I may, we do see this a lot in anime, especially in the shonen and the magical girl genre. Sailor Moon, most importantly, for little girls out there, does not destroy monsters. She is not Ash from Evil Dead with a shotgun. Sailor Moon purges possessed people in an act of mercy and mood stabilization, separating the survivor from the negative emotion. You are not a monster. You are having a hard moment. Even Goku, left and right, says that every monstrous, buff, manly alien, left and right, you're really strong. I wonder how much stronger you can become. I like being friends with strong people like you. The actual power is friendship and validating hardships and experiences. It's a power that you can build too. So despite Naruto's traumatically negligent upbringing, he's able to exercise creativity and spontaneity. This is huge, is the ability to improvise. You will see people grappled by anxiety and based in trauma cannot think. The red flag you should look out for in any one of your loved ones in your life is, I can't imagine. That was taken from them. I can't imagine my mother being crying. I can't imagine so-and-so laughing or being kind. Okay, there's a wall that went up there to protect you inside. Let's get to breaking and understanding that wall and caring about yourself. In the first Zabuza fight, we see Naruto exercise improvisation. Zabuza, he's got the water prison around Kakashi. He plans ahead, knows what Sasuke is always going to do. Sasuke is always going to throw the ninja star. He makes himself the ninja star, knowing that Zabuza is going to dodge. He puts himself, little game theory, into his opponent's shoes and thinks how they're going to think and feels what they're going to feel. That is a legitimate superpower. That's what gets people into the social services. Now, I talked about inheritance and the hardship of trauma and growing up alone. This should be the shout out to every teenage boy in the room and everyone who came from a teenage boy long ago. I love Naruto's relationship with his inner power, Kurama, the Nine Tail, because it is a trauma response. It's the journey of emotional regulation. It is hypervigilance. When this happens to veterans who return from foreign tours, climate refugees, assault survivors, the body releases adrenaline and suddenly, you're on! Looking for the threat. Where's the threat? Sasuke's down, punch the thing that dropped Sasuke. The Fox in Naruto is a constant struggle and a dialogue, and it's so easy to double down and listen to your anger. Because anger is a rush. Anger is a power. And it always places you as that disrespected victim and hero. You're both the victim and the hero if you listen to your anger, and it howls to get your attention. How dare they do that to us? Yeah! Take it out on the Starbucks barista. I'm an adult. Yeah, Fox power does make Naruto stronger, faster, and more volatile, and every time he uses it, he risks losing himself. We see this until he learns to regulate with Jiraiya. QB is a prison inside this kid, and it wants to be let out, and it gives him and lends him that power and hoping to take control. That is any teenager feeling real-world challenges for the first time. It is not the first time someone has broken up with their partner. It's the first time we have broken up. We have to experience this ourselves. You can't avoid the thing you're afraid of, or you will always avoid for the rest of your life. You don't grow that way. Naruto didn't have parents to set a common example or to be empathetic, curious. The fox inside you wants to smash Sasuke across the face for ignoring you. Wow, dude, that's hard. Wonder what you felt like in that moment. See, those wording of slowing it down and separating the person's shame from the event that happened. It's the Steven Universe song. It's just a thought, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not. I show that to my mindful-based kids when we're teaching that. We all have a fox that challenges us, and we seek immediate diffusion or gratification. We don't learn frustration and tolerance. Every sport, gym trainer, late night cram session, staring down the bully in a meeting, your frustration, persevering through, building and pushing your new limits, that's shonen stuff. That's expanding your window for emotional distress and tolerance. Run away every time, and you just don't grow. Sometimes it's fine to tune out that fox or start talking to it. Let's look at client number 2, Sasuke Uchiha. Top of his class from the famed Uchiha clan, traumatized orphan with attachment issues. I can say that. In addition to the fire jutsu, Sasuke has the advantage of the Sharingan, the love of the village, the support of all of his teachers, the focus of his sensei Kakashi. Finally, one-on-one validation. In any maneuver, Sasuke is the star, he takes precedence. Sasuke never lets his guard down. Sasuke never starts a sentence with the words, I feel. Because Sasuke's entire defense mechanism, which is more of a fortress at this point, is control. That's why he struggles with communication and relationships. There's no extra conversation because he can't control how people react. He dismisses when they come up to him. No, you're overreacting. I don't feel that. You're clearly lying. Find someone like that in your life. Attachment issues will show up in his behavior, knowing his older brother, Itachi, murdered his parents right in front of him, and as a trauma response, he has probably relived and seen the murder of his parents in front of him so many times, even before he gets hit with the Genjutsu, seeing it, 528,000 times, which in his defense is only half as much as we see that flashback again and again in the series running. That joke is from my friend Scott Lutz, who gave it to me. Thank you, Scott, and you're welcome. The thing is, trauma isolates. Trauma takes away your voice and your creativity. Remember, I can't imagine. Sasuke can't imagine. Sasuke struggles with trust and attachment. We see that this We see this in his willingness to abandon the Hidden Leaf Village and join the outlaw Orochimaru, joining the Akatsuki, forming his own rebel team, and later in the series. I will take from others what I need for my goals. You work for me. I'm in control. All of his powers later are just full ribcage ghost defensing capabilities. Don't touch me. I've already been hurt. Bleh. Since Sasuke can control how often he works out, how often he fights, the name of his crew, he focuses on that. When we can't process what was done to us, even if we blocked it out, those painful memories, I gotta tell you, the body remembers, and here's how. Little red guy right there on the slide, the amygdala. It's part of the limbic system, right above that reptilian brain that almost all animals begin with. It's the size of an almond, and it tells you when to panic. As your immediate fear response control center, it can override your rational brain. It releases cortisone, and it starts pumping blood and oxygen to all your muscles, shutting down your digestion, your kidneys, and your liver, and your sleeping pattern in order to get you out. This is a natural biological function. This happens as soon as someone cuts you off in traffic. This happens when you look up and suddenly hit the brake. The short breath. That is a panic and anxiety response. Someone having a panic attack from the outside is just sitting in a corner, having trouble breathing. For you right there, you're in it. Your body has control of you. You get to take control back with help. It's an evolved defense mechanism, and it saved our species and us time and time again. If a threat appears, you react, and you move away, and you store that memory. And after prolonged exposure, like let's say, I don't know, living in a war-torn country and living in poverty, or watching violent crimes all day on the news, adrenaline links memory and can activate. This is to protect you, but it doesn't know how to regulate until you talk to it. This is not your fault. Your brain sees a ninja, and let's say Zabuza keeps harassing you every day at school, or is your neighbor, or starts dating one of your sisters. This is not going to get autobiographical. I talked this over with my therapist ahead of time. Eventually, your brain will code the shape of his sword, maybe even the color of his getup, his posture, his steps, the sound and tone of his voice. Even if you forget and block that out, your body is going to remember. At some point, you will see something like the large circle. That's an umbrella. Wow, my heart's going. Why? It's literally just an umbrella. Now, sometimes that hypervigilance cannot be shut down, and we cope. We learn to numb it and the thoughts with our feelings. This is where it can spiral out into drug abuse, overworking out, controlling food intake, stopping food intake, risky behavior, non-stop sex drive sometimes, insomnia, video games all night until you're not even paying attention to, retreating into familiar hobbies and arts. Another word for running away. Just keep running away and you don't grow. You will see this in adults. You will see this in people who try to manage you. You'll see this sometimes in teachers trying to teach you this stuff. But you can only fight it by becoming aware of your body. Reset the timing on that. You can only become aware of it by becoming aware of your personal experience. Sometimes it takes hours of exposure therapy. But this is trauma-informed practice, knowing how the brain and the body react and speak to one another. We break this cycle of judgment. We build in curiosity. No judgment. Respect for the person, forgiving the behavior. We talk about what has hurt us. We don't let that fester. It is scary at first. It is very scary at first. And then it just becomes easier, like any other muscle, any pull-up, any push-up, any tapping into your inner QB. It takes experience. And when we talk about the things that happen to us, it has to be safe, professional, loving environment. We talk about your strengths when you're with the therapist. We talk about your resiliencies, and we praise your tolerance and what it took for you to get here and how hard it is to ask for help. We build that platform of courage in order to look into the rivers of our fears Think of it like visiting the Grand Canyon. Those platforms that let you overlook that huge size and roughness, that beauty, that nothingness, that void, the colors. It's a feeling of you looking into yourself. There's so much there. In a trauma panel, what am I doing talking about Sakura? I know this is the Shippuden outfit. I like the outfit better. This is my panel. I get to choose it. How does a person with a supportive home life develop? Works hard at school, ambitious without hesitation. That's our girl Sakura. Seeks out her own trainer in Tsunade. Doesn't wait for someone to approach her. Seeks out her own validation. Those first few episodes begin her internal running monologue, showing us that being put together, being a clean, presentable female, it's all a facade. We learn her inner monologue is this horny, chaos, self-promoting gremlin. And we should all seek to have that voice. What we can say is that she has had great emotional regulation and a self-affirming attitude. This came from a childhood of constant loving and support. Sometimes her trauma response is freeze, sometimes extremely fawn in a situation. When adrenaline kicks off, we talk about fight or flight. There is also freeze, and fawn is prolonged trauma when you try to negotiate and calm down and just, it's okay, person trying to hurt me. No, it's okay, calm down. I'm going to calm you down for you. It's not talking about your needs, though. You see that Sakura is able to adapt in the moment where she cuts off her hair in that brave moment in the Chunin exam. Nope, I gotta go. Just like a lizard cutting off her own tail, the goal is to survive. She thinks ahead. You see her reading, studying, learning, and listening, because a strong sense of self allows you to do remarkable things, like turn away pushy men. A strong sense of self can lead to a strong moral sense and allow you to hold contradictions rather than black or white. That person, when I met that person, they were really snippy. That person sucks forever and has always sucked and will always suck. Oh, hold on now. Naruto is dangerous, and he's my teammate. Kakashi is a feckless jerk, and he's also an experienced mentor who clearly has my back. Sasuke is aloof and unsupportive, and kinda hot. I'm a good person who has to make tough decisions. Now, even though she currently has an ACEs score of 0, which is fantastic, she's always at risk because of her occupation and social connections. Secondary trauma. It happens to nurses, it happens to psychologists. We've seen too much. The story we heard again and again from first responders and nurses and therapists during the pandemic, during the quarantines, and things afterward. We were losing regulation. New perspective of looking at people. Ready for this? Risk factors versus protective factors. Things that could lead to danger, strengths that you have and present. Emphasize what goes well. Play to your strengths. Adaptive and learn superpowers and make those louder than your environmental problems. I live in a scary conservative area. Can also be, I will build an online community that welcomes my queer siblings. I can't be safe from my bio family becomes, I will make my found family feel supported no matter what. Take what was done. Protect your loved ones. Anxiety, which you'll frequently see Sakura have in the later series, prevents us from living in the present, because anxiety is all about what went wrong and what can go wrong versus what you're doing right now. You know, in the present, those are just thoughts, those are just memories. And with timing, with training, they can just be balloons that pass by. I'm angry and I'm hungry becomes, oh, there's anger and hunger here. I should eat something before I have to speak with someone, so I don't want to pass this on to them. My first year internship, I started an anime club at the charter high school in which I was a social work intern. I counseled a group of about 15 kids that by the end of the year, due to violence, cut down to 7 or 8. I lost half my caseload from not being able to regulate them and give them space to feel supported and heard. And no matter how much I gave, they still had to go back home to their environments. The environments that always reinforced, protect, and attack first. By the end of the year, my one-day-a-week anime club of 5 kids became 20 kids twice a week. And I try, and I dream, and I would love the idea of them actually hearing and processing and hearing what 15-year-old me in my high school anime club should have heard and understood and internalized and processed. So if I can't pass it on to them, I can pass it on elsewhere. If you need to hear any of this, this is for you. Take the time to know yourself. There are strengths to accepting and understanding your vulnerability and building a positive, connected relationship with a therapist and talking about and knowing you. Look to your community that supports you. You will get back what you put in. If it's too much, if it stops you from doing the work you love or doing the convention that you love, look into medication, but it will only work if it is supported by the other tripod of community, of therapy, of self-respect. Here's what I will always try to tell to my kids. Injury and loss are of the individual. Recovery and healing is communal. As long as you stand back up, you cannot be defined by what knocked you down. Looking ahead is the only reason for you to build the you from the parts you celebrate and what you can overcome. Looking behind is where you tell your past mistakes, you don't define me, but thanks for keeping me cautious. At some point, the older you get, the grayer the world becomes, and you start to learn there are no villains. There are only hurt people denied their voice. Maybe it takes more time than you're willing to give, but they can find that voice again. And if the world, capital W, tells you otherwise, you learn how to change it. Because when all else fails, you can replace judgment with curiosity. That's different. That's different. That's fun and neat. The same 30 seconds the first time you picked up a Naruto manga, the first time you picked up a shonen manga, flipped through an episode of One Piece. What is happening here? Look at how many of you got into JoJo's, despite the boundary of it being JoJo's. Tell me more. This is the first of what I hope to be a longer lecture series in the upcoming years. I would love to talk about mental health dialogue and the pros of taking care of yourself through the lens of media. I grew up loving and watching anime. I made the deepest connections in my life through volunteering and doing theater and doing haunted houses and meeting people here at conventions who for the first time told me I wasn't alone in thinking, that is so cool because it's different and colorful. Show me more! My stuff and my stand-up comedy is available on Amazon and Spotify. A handful of the albums are still up there, including the swan song, Hi, I'm New and Dumb. You can also follow me on YouTube. I'm hoping to post some bits of this clip that you get to point to future friends and say, I was there. And they'll go, I don't care. And you'll go, you're just hungry. Yeah. I did it! I learned from Uncle Yo! So, take your time. Find your own ninja way no matter what happened. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. Thank you for a wonderful 2023 Zenkaikon. Do good, be good. Thank you so much, everybody. This is also the first time in 15 years of presenting I didn't go over. It actually So I'm happy if anyone's interested to take questions or talk more shop on either resources or Naruto. I'm happy to turn it over to a group discussion. Let me just hydrate my face hole.
Oh my.
Yes, first hand up.
I will say, I just really like the diversity of your personality and how personable and the way you explain things. It all just encompasses very nicely.
I appreciate it. I was, the only time I ever went onto my campus, because I've been Zooming the whole time, was to do some group one-on-one interviews that ended up being put on the site. Of course, only at Yeshiva University could a white guy be brought in as a diversity hire. I'll take it. One of my professors is tragically monotone. Tragically monotone. And for 7 takes, she did the exact same reading off the prompt the same way. Could you put a little energy or joy into it? Yes. Psychodrama was formed in the I don't know, like the YouTubers I love the most are the definite character pieces. I love Chef John from foodwishes.com because they build into their own characteristics. I also love the girl with the dogs, despite the fact that she sounds like an emotional flatline. It somehow plays off the dogs even better. But thank you for that compliment. I'm excited for that. It really does help to modulate and break up your sentence structures.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what content like on as you progress through your school.
I am too. Imagine what happens when I get into mindfulness, breathing, Zen, and Demon Slayer. If it's still popular by next year. Yes, my friend, I think I saw a hand raise.
I mean, character in Naruto that really sticks out to me is Asperger's is Sai, actually. I really like the Sai, who's socially awkward, very blunt.
Okay. I think that's also fantastic, and I'm also of the mindset, so just personal for me, is if the author does not mention or include it, we can't really project into it, but also we're fans, and you own whatever you love. I swear to God, Monkey D. Luffy is either ace or on the spectrum, and that's fine, because his friends know how to regulate and work with that. But your thoughts about Sai make absolute sense, because this is someone who's so hyper-fixated on training. There's not even a sense of this person is feeling what in front of me. It's so get the thing done, and when you walk around with painting mythical creatures, if that is your hammer, the world looks like nails. He's so interesting when he's brought on, because I remember when he first came on into Naruto, we were all like, we already had a bland, emotionless shithead like Sasuke. Why are we just getting one with a midriff like Sai? They're two very different sides of the same coin. While you can argue that Sasuke purposefully shuts down his emotions to not be hurt again, that's his defense mechanism, which I don't think I mentioned once in the panel, so I have to do this for next time. Sai just seems inherent. You can meet people like that, and what we're learning more and more about our friends and family on the spectrum, it can be taught. Just like any other muscle, it just takes time and patience. It can be taught. There are practicing sociopaths out there that realize they are on the sociopathic spectrum, and they become doctors, they become dentists. Not for the reasons of the Little Shop of Horror song, but because it can be taught. And you know what didn't fire off for me? The fact that not everyone else in the room was as angry as I was when I was a kid and stumbling with dyslexia and thoughts and pervasive stuttering. No one else felt that. It was so rewarding then when I saw it portrayed on like media, and the hardest thing to do. So if you have a young person in your life and they try to hand you something and they're going like no face in Spirited Away, see, this me. If you just take that and thank them for that, or they'll dive even deeper and hyperfixate because there has to be a hidden language or an answer here. Thank you for your comment, though. Yes, my friend. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing one for ReZero or the Monogatari series?
I am not into either, so no. And I've heard that comment before. I think maybe if I put the time into it, it would make sense. The origins of this panel was the fact that, so I ran a benevolent dictatorship as the high school anime club president. Like, you will always have the vote on what Mr. Custer brings to the building. So you always have a say in what I can provide. And we're watching Cowboy Bebop. We do episode 2 and episode 5, Ballad of Fallen Angel. Spike is falling backward out of the church window, and Greenbird starts to play, and the flashback goes, and one of my kids just goes, "This is mid, Naruto's better!" And as the social worker, because of mindfulness training, I'd love to hear your thoughts later, and as Uncle Yo, I began to look on my phone what it takes to get a student expelled. What that paperwork looks like. just because I don't know it doesn't mean that it's not validated. So working with these kids, I had to dive deeper into Naruto, and because I was also taking trauma and interpersonal violence in a school of high schoolers the year after the pandemic, every lecture I would literally see demonstrated in front of myself. So that was the immediate click. But I'm interested in exploring that more, so thank you for the heads up. Happy for any recommendation. Yes, my friend.
Awesome. So yeah, actually, this is weird. This is my first time in like 10 years. I played like Smash with Elmore Anime Society's holiday Zenkaikon so many years ago.
That sounds about right.
And so I happen to see you here, you're a social worker. So I'm actually looking at trying to become a social worker now myself. And so have you seen a lot of like pushback on using things like anime and video games to help with this? Because I feel like when we were like teens and adults, it was.
Okay. Yes, and so on Facebook there are multiple groups about geek-specific therapy. If you're interested in using tabletop role-playing games as therapy adjacent, you can look up two groups: the Baudhana group, which is down in York, Pennsylvania, as well as Game to Grow. They offer certified Zoom courses. Superhero therapy, done by Dr. Janai Spencer Striker Scarlett. Dr. Scarlett wrote the book Superhero Therapy. All it is using pop culture to create a common language. Therapists have been using Star Trek language because it is ubiquitous and absorbed into our culture. Telling someone, oh, your shields are up. Yeah, we know what that looks like and feels like. So yes, translating what someone knows, especially someone who doesn't know the academic language and the processes of mental health recovery. And you heard me purposefully using and throwing a bunch of terms, specifically because I'd like to use this for future social work lectures, because in addition to the anime circuit, if I could break into the psychological or social worker convention circuit, why not? I blend both worlds, and it always helps to just know where the client is. The most important thing you'll learn as a social worker is start where the client is. This is Maslow's pyramid. You don't go to someone in the middle of a panic attack and ask them about their parents. You handle the situation immediately. Not everyone is ready to start talk therapy. Some people are way ready to start talk therapy and have boundary issues on that. But yes, I fully recommend Game to Grow, the Baudhana group. I just recommend doing some either TikTok or YouTube searches on nerd-specific therapy. I can recommend the let me find the podcast. They take time, but they always equate something to the Mental Health Quest podcast. Are two practicing psychologists with PhDs, the Mental Health Quest podcast. They bring on a different person and talk about different mental disorders, hyper-focusing. They did one on borderline personality disorder, and if you don't know what that is, Harley Quinn, done. The more you read on borderline personality disorder and the dysregulation of immediate context.
So I have borderline. In the borderline community, we don't actually like borderline because it's typically seen as stereotypical crazy woman syndrome. It's emotional dysregulation disorders, what its core is.
Yes.
We have a lot of problems, there's a lot of overlap with ADHD, autism, spectrum.
Yeah.
We have a lot of emotional dysregulation, but also other issues with how people perceive us.
I'm so thrilled with this because in advanced clinical psychology on Tuesday night, we literally talked for 2 hours about borderline. So we talked about treatment modalities like EMDR or DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. The first episode of goddamn She-Hulk! The Hulk mentions dialectical behavioral therapy! We're in the language now! And I can use that to bridge that gap with people. The Hulk talks about separating you from your bad past acts. He even did it in when they go back in time, spoiler alert, in one of the Thanos movies. Bruce Hulk watches old shirtless Hulk just yelling and smashing cars, and he just goes, oh my god, why did I behave that way back then? It's like he gets it! There's a moment of shame and recognition. That's the point of growth. Thank you for that. And so the short answer is absolutely yes. As more and more people age into the profession, we all grew up in the last 30 years with this stream of pop culture with references to draw from. I've done, feminist lectures using magical girls versus Disney princesses, what women are being told actively and underlined. I did gender identity and Steven Universe as a panel, as a lecture. We've done social justice gone awry, the villains of Legend of Korra. What happens when you don't have flexibility in your beliefs? Any other thoughts or questions? Yes.
My question pertains if you've watched Trigun.
If I've watched
Trigun before.
let me get the tattoo out. Yeah, Trigun for me is in my DNA. It is religion. We'll see how Stampede ends before we start the apples to oranges. But talk to me about Trigun.
So basically, you know how he went through a very traumatic childhood and growing up, and he basically tries to make sure no one goes through that type of stuff by extending and trying to help everyone.
Yeah.
Have you come across a lot of people like that?
Okay, so this happens all the time when we talk about anxiety-ridden mothers. This also happens with workaholics. The anxiety of, I can't take, does anyone else in your life do this? I can't take a day off, this place will fall apart without me. I can't stop working, they need me. I have to go in because I'm sick. I mean, I waited tables for 10 years. I worked when I had the flu because I knew that people I trained could not handle it without me. Do you understand how self-destructive that risk is? And if you talk about internalizing that, look at Vash's body. Look at all of those brokes and those stains and those streaks and those bruises that he learned, that he gained from trying to intervene and say, don't hurt each other, hurt me instead. That is a martyr complex. Yeah. Oh, Fashion Stampede is nothing but trauma repression. It's very, very fun. Thank you. Yes, you have a bear for a head.
Yes, I do. Thank you. My question is, what would you say the best thing to do as far as someone who is trying to work through any kind of trauma and stuff, but they can't kind of analyze the good parts of them? And even when they do have a support network, it just doesn't kind of click, I guess.
A phenomenal question. In mindfulness, which I teach a class on Mondays specifically for older adults, I'm writing my capstone thesis on it now. So Viktor Frankl, who was a crime psychologist who survived Auschwitz, his wife was in the next building over, and they both survived the war and never met up again. As it turns out. So he says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space for us to build. That space is our power. This is not advice, because I don't even have my master's degree yet, but what I'm hearing is a readiness to talk, and I also hear hesitancy at the same time. So what I would love to build upon is this open curiosity about wanting to take that first step and learning how to speak back to that anxious voice, but we've never done this before, but we're going to mess up. I've never given this lecture before, and I'm just scared to give up. There's always a monkey holding onto my neck and yelling, you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna lose your place in your notes. The PowerPoint is messing up. This is going to mess up and you're gonna fail. He has to compete with 10 years of experience with my bulldog on a leash of doing the crazy voices, doing the pauses, making the audience laugh, and making everyone feel comfortable. The dog never eats and kills the monkey. We talk about this in internal family systems, IFS. The best. Internal family systems, you respect all the parts of you. You cannot kill or get rid of them. But the dog is louder than the monkey. The dog can't kill the monkey because if I don't have the monkey, I'm just going to swerve into traffic however I want. I'm not going to think ahead about the danger. Without the monkey, I wouldn't brush my teeth every night to ensure that I keep my teeth when I'm older. Without the monkey, I wouldn't stop drinking. What it takes is One is it takes to expand a personal social network and to look out for professional help. Professionals have they have much more of the training in the language, which I have another 3 years before I can even dream of taking my licensed clinical exam. They have the language to meet you where you are. Friends are fantastic, and having a friend network is huge because it tells me that you both give and have others willing to take. That's something that you brought or you learned for. That is something I would build up and support. Even people riddled with anxiety, that in itself, even if they want to use it detrimentally, that's a superpower to protect themselves. I never give my clients a hard time, even in their 60s, when they miss a session because they slept through. They listened to their body for once. They listened to their needs. I don't let them guilt themselves or shame themselves. So we should probably get out of here for the next presenter. If anyone wants to keep talking, I'm just going to be outside of the doors. This was my first time. I was nervous as heck. Thank you again so much, Zenkaikon. I hope to see you guys next year. I really love doing this for you.